Giulia Bavagnoli is a logosynthesis practitioner and instructor specialized in navigating life transitions and enhancing relationships. Her background is NLP, energy psychology, and emotional balancing. She lives in Belgium with her family and is currently focusing on literature projects, which she tells me fills her with great joy. So Julia is a member of the LEA Communications Committee. Thank you, Julia, for that. And together we work to create awareness for what is possible when working with logosynthesis and also to share the great work that's being done by our professional members as they integrate this new model into their personal development and professional practices. So, yeah, in this conversation, Julia and I will explore the principles of logosynthesis and why they are so precious to guide both healing and personal growth. So, thank you for joining me, Julia.
Thank you for having me, Kathy.
Yeah. So, to start, can you tell me about your introduction to the model and what sparked your curiosity to learn about it?
Yes, I was introduced to the model by two different points. I had two entry points, but they collided in the time frame, so it was kind of synchronicities there. At one point, I was training in all sorts of techniques, and I participated to a conference, an online conference where Willem Lemmers was presenting. Um, I think it was about the COVID protocol because we were in the COVID period. Yeah, and I participated in this exercise, and I was pretty impressed with the shift that occurred. And at the same time, I was following a therapy with a psychotherapist who was using logosynthesis with me, and I was, you know, uh, observing the high impact that my sessions had with him. I mean, for me, of course. So I was very curious to discover more about this model, and then I started training online. So it was really the big online period of trainings, and
Yeah,
yeah,
during COVID, I
that,
think we met a lot of people internationally,
yeah,
didn't we? That we were all curious to learn and we couldn't leave our house, so there was time for it.
yes. So that is the context of my discovery of this model. Yeah.
Yeah, so from this beginning, what keeps you curious to keep doing your own personal work and also to guide others?
Well, I really like the model. So I have life view or philosophy, we can call it, that is pretty close to what logosynthesis um, proposes. This is for the personal part. Uh, for the professional part, um, well, I simply see that it really works very well with the people I guide. So uh, there's the efficiency part, and also it's still an ongoing process. So the model is still being developed, and we are called as well to uh, be developers ourselves of this model. So it's pretty exciting as it expands, as it evolves, as it changes, as it integrates different points of view from different practitioners with different cultural backgrounds. So yes, it's a living model.
Yeah, I
That's
think
very
you make
interesting.
such a good point there about how it is close to your life views, right? So for some people, they might come to it and they kind of struggle with some of the language in the beginning because like they may come from a different culture, they may come from different personal experiences or a different background, and so sometimes the language might sound a little foreign to them. But then I find
Mhm.
when they start to work, like usually we start with the introduction to the basic procedure, which is a very structured guided protocol, and they start to notice something shifting. And yeah, and I think different, part of our role as practitioners is to guide them so that they can integrate it into their lives with the language that they have. And yeah, so
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes. And I mean, yes, it has some technical, words that are used only in logosynthesis model, but well, not only, but in that context, yes. But it's not, yeah, it's not very complicated to adapt to our own, philosophies or ways of speaking about the same things. So, of course,
yeah, like
yes,
for me, even I'm not a psychotherapist. And so in the introduction and the basic procedure, we start with how do you suffer? And so for me, how do you suffer sounds a little bit intense, but what bothers you is pretty common in my daily life, right? So, and the
yeah,
people
yeah,
that I work with, and so sometimes it's those nuances of understanding that we're dealing with the same thing, but maybe some different words.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
So, was there an early client experience where you were maybe guiding someone that made you think, oh, there's really something precious here?
Uh, no, meaning that that experience I had it when I was the client.
Okay.
So when I was the client, I realized there is really something here. And when I started working with clients, then I knew that it works really well because I trained and I was in practice groups and uh, I could observe every single time that the model is really working very well. So uh, I wasn't receiving clients before knowing the logosynthesis
Okay.
model.
Yeah. So, can you tell
Or
us about the core principles that make it work so consistently?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's the core principles that make it work consistently, because I think there is something behind how Willem found the words of the protocol that we use so the basic protocol that we use when guiding clients. Uh, and that was done by, testing what works better and what makes more sense. But I particularly appreciate the principles because they um, simplify the work with the clients and make it effective and impactful. Uh, so I will start by saying the first principle is everything is energy, right? So this principle helps me, and I guess a lot of other practitioners and synthesis with guiding clients, because you are not uh, put off balance if a client is talking about a symptom or a situation, a context, or something that he or she's been experiencing for a long time. You just know that everything is energy, that energy flows or is freely or not, and you don't get lost in the content of the stories. You just take what you need to work on and apply the sentences, right? So uh, these two principles are what makes the model so effective and indeed consistently, as you said. Um, and then there is another model that is another principle that is working uh, for me personally, uh, that is about how energy gets stuck, and when we go into, I think this is the basic training, and we see the dissociations and fantasies, or even into the instructor course, you can already find fantasies and desires and uh, of course beliefs and how to say memories. Then you when you are leaving, you can already feel where your energy is stuck. For example, okay, am I concentrating my attention or something that has not happened yet? Am I building a scenario that is stuck in my energy there, and that's why I am feeling this resistance within me? Am I thinking about something that doesn't feel so good, and maybe some energy is stuck there. So I really think it gives a roadmap to, yeah, analyze in a certain way the way you feel and why you feel it like that. And once you know that it's just energy that is stuck, and then you can say some sentences or simply redirect your attention, well, then, yeah, it
That changes
simplifies
a lot,
even,
doesn't it? Yeah,
yeah,
there's an element there of, I think you're highlighting that awareness, because a lot of times with stress, we're not even aware that we're stressed. We're doing what we believe needs to be done, or we're operating on old patterns. So we're not even aware of what's happening in our body. And without awareness, then it's really hard to change something. So oftentimes, once we learn these basic principles that everything's energy and either something's stuck and it's an old memory, belief, or fantasy, then it's like, oh, okay, like I'm not really reacting. I'm reacting to something in the past or the future. I'm not being present. And
yeah,
then the other element, because oftentimes I know we can say, oh, I'm aware of what's happening, but there still is that element of shifting what's frozen. And so the basic procedure guides us to identify the memory, the belief, the fantasy, or it's what we might recognize as a mental imagery in the space around us. And then we can shift that with the words. So then there's still that element of restoring the flow of that energy or shifting the
yeah,
energy or
yeah.
as I might say sometimes like getting rid of whatever it is that's stuck there so that it doesn't keep triggering
Yeah,
us and derailing us.
especially, yeah, especially if that energy is not ours. So that's another principle. Energy can be ours or not. So the energy that is not ours doesn't need to be in our system, and that is something that we can also observe in everyday life, right? When you have an interaction and then you are, stuck with some s- emotion that you cannot explain, and you say, okay, maybe that is not mine, right? Maybe that energy, that emotional energy
Hmm.
is not mine. So, for example, so that's also a guideline to,
Yeah, and that energy could be the words that someone says just kind of gets stuck in our memory, or
yeah,
it
yeah,
could be in an accident, the energy, something's stuck there that is from an accident that isn't ours. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So what does logosynthesis take into account that other models don't approach or might miss?
What I found really effective and deep as intervention with logosynthesis is that when you, as you were mentioning before, when how do you suffer? Well, you can ask that, but you are exploring all different dimensions of the human. You can explore the thoughts, but you explore the emotions and the physical sensations, and the fact that you are um, uh, investigating on different levels give it give them gives this approach more of a holistic uh, nuance that you don't have in a lot of other methodologies or models, and it also allows you to the fact that you are investigating all these dimensions means that you are taking in consideration the fact that everything is connected, right? Of course, everything is energy, but as we humans, we have pretty complex, you know, uh, uh, build up. So when you are considering everything at the same time, uh, yeah, it's pretty complete as approach, and so the ship goes very deep uh, when when intervention is
Yeah.
applied when.
And as you're saying that, what comes to mind for me is Willem often describes, like we talk about body, mind, spirit quite often when we talk
Mhm.
about health and wellness. And yet when it
Yeah.
comes to spirit, we kind of sometimes get lost in the spirituality because there can be a lot of cultural differences around that or family family backgrounds and things like that, or personal experiences. So what Willem, I remember him describing body, mind, spirit as a computer, and he said the body is the hardware, the mind is the software, and the spirit is the user of the body and mind. And so
Hmm.
then, if you think of spirit, I think of spirit as energy. So again, everything is energy. And then we can bring the body and mind into a different, more holistic, as you say, context of health. And it empowers us because it is through that energy of our words that we can um, create shifts and
Yeah,
relieve suffering. Yeah.
yeah. In that analogy, I would say spirit is the user. I would add the spirit is the electricity as well that makes it
Yeah.
possible for the computer to work, right?
Yeah, because that's energy too, isn't it? Electricity is the energy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, without electricity, the computer wouldn't work. And
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, because we're talking about logosynthesis working with words, and we've been talking about mental imagery like memories, beliefs, fantasy, and we've been
Hmm.
talking
Hmm.
about energy. So, those three elements. So, why do you think this combination is so powerful?
Yeah. Well, while working with clients, uh, it gives a great freedom to adapt to the client's world, right? Clients has a specific representation that might shift from one day to another, but at the moment of the what I call intervention, even if it's a bit of, kind of a hospital
Yeah.
hospital word, but when we are working with clients this approach really allows us to work with what they come up with. There is no interpretation, no need for interpretation. There is nothing is good or bad. Everything or anything that they come up with is their representation of something, and that it is what will work for them that day in that moment specifically. And I think this is extremely powerful. We are not even, you know, um, required to push for something or to go into very dramatic or painful memories. You can just use a symbol, anything that person's say uh, subconscious or any kind of mental imagery that comes up with for this person is exactly what it needs, what they need to process that information, that awareness with the logosynthesis technique and model. So um, yeah, it really allows us to take whatever comes from the client as it is, and it will work. Uh,
And if you
Actually,
say
they
that, we talk a lot in logosynthesis because it's based on a psychotherapy approach where working alliance and safety for the client is so
yeah.
important. And what we often find is that if the person feels safe, then these memories can come to the surface because oftentimes in our everyday life, they might be operating below the surface, like keeping us stuck in
Hmm.
fears or worries or anger or whatever. But in that space of working with you, where you feel safe with the model and they feel safe with you, then those energetic structures, those memories and beliefs are more free to come up. And when they surface, then we can work with the words, the sentences
Yeah.
to
And yeah.
shift them. And
Yeah, and it might take a couple,
yeah.
of sentences or a couple of sessions even for the person to be ready simply to access those.
Yeah, and sometimes
You
we're
know,
working with personal themes. Like my themes are around work hard, hurry up, as you well know, and it's all in layers. But each shift kind of opens space to make it, yeah, to help reconnect. For me to be a little bit more present rather than just always reacting to everything that's going on.
yeah.
Yeah.
And when you mention trust, it's very important. Actually, I don't even explain what logosynthesis is to my clients most of the time. Um, they just, they just follow. It's not they obey,
Yeah.
but they just follow my lead. And when this relationship is there, and they can, trust that whatever is in the session is going to be good for them, then yeah, they don't even need to know. The model works even if you don't know what you are saying with your words.
Yeah.
I mean, it is that powerful.
And I think a lot of times for, professionals that are guiding people, whether you're a coach, a counselor, a psychotherapist, a lot of times the structure of the model can give you a sense of trust that whatever comes up for the client, that you can hold that space for them as well, which I
Yeah,
think is quite
for sure.
important. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. As I said, everything is energy. So whatever comes up, it can be an atrocious memory or just, uh, a very simple event of the day before. It's just energy. It is exactly the same thing. And then that gives also the practitioner the confidence to work with whatever comes up with.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
So many methods focus on cognitive processes,
Hmm.
um, focusing on our brains to change the thoughts and behaviors. And yet, sometimes when we're in that moment, I think of the Viktor Frankl quote about the space to have the power to choose our response. And yet,
Hmm.
oftentimes, these are automatic reactions we're talking about. So there's
Yeah.
not a whole lot of space. But logosynthesis, as we've been speaking about it, we know that it works at a different level. And then the results are often described as magical by people. Um,
Yeah.
how do you?
Well, it seems like it dissociates or it dissociates a stimulus from the reaction we always had about it. If you talking about the brains, there is the amygdala in the brain who's responsible for emotions and for reactions into, during times of stress. And when our energy is stuck there in some memories of the past, well, we directly access that kind of pattern, and we react with the same reactions, even if we're not, we are no more 5 years old. So I guess that what is happening is, of course, an energetical shift, but it happens on a very physical level, because if we are not reacting anymore, it means the amygdala is not recognizing that as a danger, because it's not there anymore. So
Yeah,
once we free that part of our energy, then we can use it for something more creative. Uh, so anytime we react to something that is not really a danger for us in the present time, we use a lot of energy that we could use in a more creative way to create the life that we want, instead of reacting to something that traumatized us for
yeah.
a lifetime
Without even
back.
realizing, right? Like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, once people go through with the sentences, so they start with a mental image or a memory, and then and they have the physical sensations, the emotions, and the thoughts, which we group together to rate the distress. And then afterwards, they once again look at the level of distress, and oftentimes they look at what's there for that mental image. And so it appears that once that memory shifts, then also the distressing symptoms fall away type thing is
Yeah.
seems to be how
Yeah.
it,
I
yeah.
guess it I guess it's the same shifts, but translated onto different signals, right? So the
Yeah.
mental imagery will shift by, for example, or disappearing or being, I don't know, out of focus, or it shifts, and the emotion part shifts as well, but part of the same shift, right?
Yeah.
It's the
And
same
most people I
chain.
talk to say, Kathy, I don't care what happened. I just know that it works, so I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I mean, at the end of the day, we really don't know why it works.
Yeah.
If we are, I mean,
Yeah.
we really don't know why it works, but it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me because some people, it's like, oh, that seemed magical to me and it's done and gone. It's bothered me for a long time and now it doesn't bother me anymore. And I'm content with that. And then, for other people, it's like, well, that can't have happened like that. So yeah, it's all
Yeah, some
and with
people
something
need,
new as we try to um,
yeah,
understand
yeah.
it.
Some people need more explanations so they can analyze better what happens. But probably we still, well, where we yet don't have uh, the scientific machinery to measure what really happens
Yeah,
when we say the sentences and when
yeah,
we free up energy like that.
yeah. And with
I
energy,
guess.
maybe we don't have to, right? Like we don't have to know how a surgeon works when he works. So maybe we don't have to know. But so I know that you describe the principles of logosynthesis as precious. So why
Yeah.
this word? Yeah, why precious?
Precious, I guess, I associate with some kind of rarity in some way. As you were saying, there are not a lot of models that have this kind of integrative approach. Um, and again, the first principle, everything is energy, is even if it's extremely general as principle and as it's a general statement. Everything is energy. Um, it allows us to uh, yeah, to analyze things from that perspective and not getting caught in the politics of psychologies or of or mental games or trying to play the detectives and try to understand why a person is going through what they're going through. There is no need for that, and oftentimes we're simply wrong. We don't have all the information, right? And we don't need to have the all the information. Once we believe and trust that everything is energy and that energy can shift, and in this approach, in this model, it shifts with specific words, then everything is simpler. And simplicity is pretty rare and pretty precious in in this domain.
That's so true. Yeah. It's so because sometimes we end up getting so caught up in trying to prove ourselves that we make everything way more complicated
Yeah,
than what it has to be. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And also for clients, they they come to you at a certain point and they have the impression that there's something wrong with them and they need to be fixed. And that's not true. They don't need to be fixed. There is nothing wrong with them. It's just energy that is stuck somewhere and can be put back in circulation again.
Yeah, and often with logosynthesis, the premise is that we are essence, we are life energy with a life purpose, and that that essence is, a high frequency energy, the essence of love. And people speak of essence in many different spiritual and different contexts, but it's so our higher self. And
Mhm.
so in this work, there's a recognition that that is who we truly are. And our
Yes.
work with logosynthesis to reconnect with our true self rather than trying to fix it. So it's clearing away the frozen energy or these imprints, these memories, these beliefs, these fantasies that are blocking our awareness rather than trying to fix it. And that's something that to me is really profound. And I notice it when I do this work because I was always caught up in trying to, you know, work out more and eat better and maybe not
Hmm.
drink so much alcohol and get a good night's sleep. And I was caught up in doing all these things to try to, you know, do a healthy lifestyle. And just the
Hmm.
energy on it got so caught up. And yet this premise is just, let go of the things that are blocking you or keeping you stressed, and then you can make better choices. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And then maybe you will have the same habits, sport wise or food wise, but they come from a different place. You're not forcing yourself to a lifestyle that you think will be good for you. You're just flowing with what your energy suggests you, and you're just fine. I mean, you feel good because everything is in balance, not just it's not an effort. That's what I'm saying.
yeah. I said I used to get stressed out. Oh, I should be scheduling a spa day. I should be, booking a massage. And then it's like you're trying to fit it in your schedule. And it's like, is
Yeah.
that really helpful? Like,
Yeah, it's like, is that really the right approach for a massage to getting stressed about how to book it?
and then I'm there at my massage and I'm so busy thinking about all the things I have to do. So it's just, it's understanding those underlying drivers, right? And yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And knowing that when energy is flowing more freely, you are more in the present. So when you are getting a massage, you are just getting a massage and enjoying it, right?
yeah. And I think that is a little rare in our, this approach of just recognizing what's blocking your energy or recognizing what's stressing you, identifying the trigger, shifting the trigger, like and staying focused. So I adopt this as a healthy lifestyle practice. And for me, I think in addition to the other things, integrating this as a healthy lifestyle practice has really helped me stay more grounded and more present.
Mm.
And that is precious because there's not a lot of approaches. Like anytime you scroll through social media, everything's telling you what you should do.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And yeah, and that's probably another precious thing about logosynthesis is that it's not prescriptive, right? And once your energy frees up, well, the way you express yourself is just yours, um, because that energy is available and it will, express itself through you in a very specific and unique way. There is no um, right or wrong way of doing or way of living. It's just yours because it's your energy that is, you know,
Yeah.
that you are using. It's your
And
free
when it's
self.
grounded in that, that understanding of essence, or it's just, if you're not stuck in a stress reaction and you're calmer, then the people around you feel calmer as well, right? So
Yeah, yeah, well,
oftentimes
yeah.
we bring our stress. So yeah. So oftentimes it's like symptom relief, and we've kind of talked about this, but the shifts go beyond symptom
Hmm.
relief.
Hmm.
So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, I found that with my clients that the symptom they come to resolve is not at all what they come to process, right? There is always something else behind that, and logosynthesis allows for this kind of gradual approach. So you start with one thing, and then energy shifts there. The client is ready for something deeper, and deeper and deeper we go. And at the end of the day, if they come for example, uh, anxiety for travels, uh, at the end of the path, they have a new couple relationship. I mean, they have a new relationship with their partner, or new meaning renewed, not another guy or another one. I mean, they change. No, no, they find, yeah, they find balance in different aspects of their life. That is that is because we are one entity, even if we have different dimensions. Everything is connected. So once energy is freed up, then it's there, it's available, and available for all aspects of your life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how is learning locus synthesis? changed the way you listen to people or even how you live your life? Can you give us a little insight? What has the biggest shifts for you?
Yeah, I guess the biggest shifts um, are about this the concepts of this. We're talking about symptoms, but when they come with a symptom, you just know that that is just the surface, and then there will be another um, uh, adapt uh, adaptation strategy that is beyond that or under that, and then something else. So this the core of the energy, the frozen energy somewhere else still. So um, yeah, I mean it's really making discerning and choosing what are the important information when working with someone. Uh, so that you can, laser focus your attention to what is really here that is uh, keeping this energy stuck where it is, right? And and for me, yeah, once again, this everything is energy, and the energy is yours or not, and it flows freely or not, and you can do something about it. Uh, Well, it's pretty practical. It's pretty, once you know how to approach something, it just and once you have repeated the procedure for hundreds or thousands of times, you just can just say a sentence and there it goes. But I guess it mostly, personally, when I use logosynthesis for my development, it's more advanced protocols because I have a lot of fun with those and they are extremely powerful. And when it gets to, the basic procedure, sometimes just knowing and having the awareness of where the energy is frozen, sometimes it is just enough. Honestly, sometimes I don't even need to say the sentences. Maybe because my brain already knows them and just does the work,
You're doing them
Okay,
subconsciously.
you find
Yeah,
it, you found it, okay, it's gone.
yeah. I
Uh,
clear that. Yeah.
Not even that, not even that.
Okay.
Just the
Yeah.
awareness is, yeah, sometimes just the awareness is enough. But I do work pretty often with advanced protocols, and yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, so you
It's just
shared for
amazing the shift.
Logosynthesis Day, you did a guided exercise using one of the
Yeah,
advanced protocols, so people can find that on the LEA website,
yeah,
Logosynthesis International Association, and it's available in French and in English, so thank
yeah.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, you wrote a book about logosynthesis, so maybe you could just speak a little
Yeah,
bit about that and then how people get in touch with you, and then I'll have a final question.
yeah. Well, the book is in French, and it's the book was thought for those who are learning logosynthesis, who are really training logosynthesis, and it's more of a text where you have all the basic principles. It's called the l'essentiel de la logosynthèse. There is, a pun with that sense. So it's really the essential key points of logosynthesis, how to work with clients, with case studies and stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
And you can find it on Amazon. Yeah.
Okay. And what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Oh, they can write my email, I guess.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe
So,
you can.
yeah, or maybe find you on LinkedIn. Like I can put some contact
Yeah,
information in the
right.
contacts.
LinkedIn
How's
and
that?
email. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Good.
that's perfect.
And then I would like to hear kind of a key takeaway that you would like our listeners to take away from this.
Hmm. Okay, okay, let's do that. Well, the key takeaway here is that, I mean, we are responsible for our well-being, and logosynthesis is a model that allows us to be responsible, be more aware of what's going on in our lives, and if we decide um, to to move up to free up um, what we have the impression gets us stuck or keeps us stuck in a very fast and simple way. Anyone can use logosynthesis in their daily life. And that is just the way it is. It's extremely simple, it's extremely fast, and extremely effective. And for someone who takes care of energy, balance, well-being, and health in general, yeah, that is just the perfect approach.